All right, welcome back to episode number 8 of the Plume Cast, my weekly gaming solo podcast where I talk about just pretty much the topics I was not able to get to throughout the week. Thank you guys all for stopping by. If you are regular listeners, thank you. I see all the comments every week, so I really do appreciate that. If you are new here, make sure to go check out the channel. I make daily gaming news videos, Xbox-centric videos generally, and then I have this podcast at the end of the week where I talk about just pretty much any topics I want to go over that I didn't make a video about, and we just have a good time and hang out. So thank you guys again for stopping by. Every single week on the podcast, as a big beer lover, I drink a beer, and before I show you the beer that I'm drinking, like I say every week, let me know in the comments below what you guys are drinking. Give me some suggestions. Where I live, we get beers from Europe, we get beers from the United States, we get lots of import beers, but it varies every single week. I'm not really sure what's going to be there until I show up, and I'll always keep an eye out for the suggestions that you guys make. I actually mark them down, bring my little spreadsheet on my phone with me, and I look for them. But I did actually get a beer from a viewer's suggestion, username Mark Williamson, who said to try Hoegaarden. Now, Hoegaarden is a beer that I've seen around. It wasn't in my store for like the last week or so, but I was able to pick this up and try it out. And very interesting beer, has some like fruity flavors, so I am enjoying it. I like fruity flavored beers, aren't my favorite, but this one is actually pretty good. It has like a orange coriander style of flavor. It is a wheat beer. So again, thank you for that suggestion, and keep those suggestions coming. Now, what I've been playing this week, I haven't been able to get to that many games. It's been a very busy week with like other life stuff. So gaming this week has been definitely less than it was last week and the week before and stuff. But I was able to finish Mass Effect 1 from the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. That's pretty much what took up the majority of my time. And man, I'm happy that I picked up that game. Mass Effect is such a great RPG. Some of the best like character development and dialogue in a game that I've ever played. The story is awesome. It's an epic space RPG, and it's just such a great game. If you've never, I know a lot of people with Mass Effect, I feel like started with Mass Effect 2, because that was the game that everyone, I think the consensus around many Mass Effect fans, that Mass Effect 2 is the best one in the series. But if you've never played the first Mass Effect, I 100% recommend going back and playing it, because there is a story in that game that you don't want to miss out on. There are characters that are just awesome to talk to. The dialogue is awesome, and there's a decent amount of exploration. Like, you can run through the campaign probably in like 15 hours, but there's also a bunch of side quests you want to do, and then you can take your character from Mass Effect 1 and then you can move them right through every single game, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, as you play through the Legendary Edition. But I finished up the first one, absolutely loved it, and I'm going to move on to Mass Effect 2 now. But that's pretty much all that I've been playing this week. So this week on the show, we do have a lot of stuff to go over, from the Starfield and Biomutant stuff that's been going around, to Netflix potentially being a competitor to Game Pass, trying to get into the game streaming sphere. And then we got some sales and a bunch of stuff to get into. So let's just jump right into it. All right, so for the first topic I wanted to go over this week has to do with the Outer Worlds and how the franchise is being taken over by Microsoft. Whereas previously, the Outer Worlds, when it came out, it was published by Take-Two's private division. And it was published on every single platform. So you could play it on Nintendo Switch, you could play it on PS4, you could play it on Xbox. So that was something that, when the game came out, Microsoft hadn't purchased Obsidian yet, and then they later purchased Obsidian, and they just said, yeah, we're going to make sure that this game still comes out on all the platforms. Kind of like what they're doing right now with Bethesda games. New Bethesda games are going to be coming out on anywhere that Game Pass is, but if there are games that are already published on other consoles, other platforms, Microsoft's still going to support those other platforms. Like, you're not going to see them take content away from the Elder Scrolls Online from people who are playing it on PlayStation. So it was kind of a similar thing here with the Outer Worlds, as it was published by Take-Two Interactive's private division label, and apparently they thought that they were still going to be having the publishing rights, or they were going to take care of the publishing for the franchise going over, because on their latest earnings call, they had this to say. Obviously, we're incredibly pleased with the Outer Worlds and everything that it's brought. I can't say that it was a complete surprise out of the gate, but it certainly was something pleasant for us and a little bit unexpected. We will be participating in the franchise and whatever the future holds for that franchise. So we feel really good about it, and we think that it's still building audiences, and this game itself has a lot left in it. And in the future, we'll see what the future holds for it, but we do think it's a long-term franchise, and it certainly is something that we're pleased with the results. So the Outer Worlds sold over like 3 million copies, which I guess they weren't expecting it to sell like 3 million copies. They didn't expect people to be as excited for the Outer Worlds as they were. And I think one of the biggest reasons people were excited for the Outer Worlds was that it was coming from Obsidian, who has made one of the most beloved Fallout games in Fallout New Vegas. And I think just because of that reputation from that game, people were excited to see what they were going to be putting out with this new venture into a brand new world with new characters, and to see how they were going to kind of top Fallout New Vegas. And it did very well. It was a great game. Lots of people loved it, and lots of people played the DLC, loved the DLC, and it's going to continue to be one of those games that will sell very well if they release a sequel to it, which I do think they are going to do. But after that quote, Microsoft came out and kind of clarified what's actually happening with the Outer Worlds. So basically what is happening is they say, but a day after the earnings call, Private Division rep sent an update to Game of Future saying that they would not be involved in any future iterations in the series, and that Microsoft and Obsidian would be taking the reins from here on out. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, obviously, because Obsidian is fully owned by Microsoft now. Like, they're part of Xbox Game Studios, and why wouldn't they take care of the publishing? Because with the next Outer Worlds game, it's going to be on Xbox. Like, it's going to be on everywhere that Xbox Game Pass is. That's just the way it's going to be. The next Outer Worlds game, I highly doubt in any form is going to be on any other platform besides the Xbox consoles and on PC. And I think that the Outer Worlds IP itself is just such a another great RPG IP to have that will bring people over to Xbox Game Pass, and we'll see it. Maybe they talk about it in the near future. I'm sure they're going to want to start working on an Outer Worlds 2 at some point. I know there have been rumors circling around that Obsidian is not just working on Avowed, but they are working on another game, and maybe it is starting the development of the Outer Worlds 2. We will have to wait and see, but it definitely is going to be interesting to see what Microsoft and Obsidian do now with this game franchise, because there's going to be such a larger budget that Obsidian's going to have to work with when it comes to the Outer Worlds 2. It's not just going to be what they had previously. You're going to have all of the backing of Microsoft, of Xbox, of the knowledge and skill and whatever collaboration there is from all of the other studios within Xbox Game Studios, if those employees from other studios want to help out. We know at the roundtable, Phil Spencer, they talked about this. They pretty much said that they don't force employees from other studios to go to their studio down the hall and say, hey, we want to work on this game with you. What happens, from what they were saying, was that employees see the creative direction of other games under Xbox Game Studios, and they get excited and they want to contribute. They want to start working on or contribute whatever they can, yes, to those games. So that may happen. You never know, right? Now that Bethesda and Obsidian, they're all under the same roof, there could be some insane RPGs that come out of the minds of these studios. And that's what I'm most excited about, because we still have so many to come. Like Starfield still has to come. Elder Scrolls 6 still has to come. Avowed still has to come. Fable still has to come. I'm probably missing more that I still haven't, that I'm not thinking about. The next Fallout. I mean, it's nuts the amount of RPGs that are going to be coming out of Xbox Game Studios. It's going to be the premier place to play RPGs, and I think it's going to be one of the biggest draws to signing up to Xbox Game Pass. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this, and let me know what you want from the Outer Worlds 2 and how you think Xbox can like add to this franchise by having that full AAA budget behind the title. All right, and moving on here to two things I wanted to go over when it comes to Xbox games and PlayStation 5 games. Well, the first one being Starfield, which, as we know, is going to be an Xbox exclusive, and it's going to be anywhere that Game Pass is, which is what exactly Phil Spencer said at the Bethesda roundtable, and it just blows my mind that people are still debating about this. It's like we wanted more transparency about the Bethesda deal when it comes to exclusivity. Phil Spencer gave us clear transparency, point blank, with no way to actually read in between the lines of what he could potentially mean, and people are still debating. But Starfield is going to be exclusive to Xbox, but that's not what's really been making the headlines too much this week. It was something that was in the debate. I think it was more last week, but this week now, people have been talking about the release date for Starfield. So my initial thought with Starfield, and I have no insider information, I'm not an insider or anything along those lines. I'm way too small of a YouTuber for anybody to care to give me any sort of inside information. But my initial thought was they were going to do what they did with Fallout 4, which was show it off at E3, give us an in-depth look at the game, because previous to when they did it with Fallout 4, we hadn't seen anything about it. And then they were going to announce that it was going to be coming out in the holiday season of 2021. And the reason I thought that was what they were going to do was because this is a game that has been in development for like 5-6 years now. So it's not like it's a game that hasn't had much time to be polished and to finish and all that kind of stuff. I know the team working on it has been working on other projects like Fallout 76, I believe, but it's still been a substantial amount of time since we heard about this game, since they announced it, and to where we are today. So that's why I thought they were going to do it, and just basing it off of Bethesda's track record and Todd Howard's track record, what they did with Fallout 4. I thought it made a lot of sense, but it looks like that's not what's going to be happening. And this week there was a bunch of stuff coming out. Firstly, people said, I think what particularly was Jeff Grubb, and I think it was others as well. I don't want to throw any names out there and then be wrong about this, but what was going around was 2022 Q1 was going to now be the release date for Starfield. Those were the rumors that were going around. And then we moved through the week even more, and now people are saying that it's going to be late 2022 or even 2023. So who knows what to believe, but the point about the Starfield release date is that it's going to come out when it's ready. And as somebody who is excited for the game, people ask, why are you excited for a game that nobody knows about and no one's seen anything about? Well, basically, I'm excited personally because it is a space RPG. And as I'm playing through games like Mass Effect, I'm realizing how much I just love that setting when it comes to RPG. So if I'm going to get a brand new one from the mind of Todd Howard, who makes really great games, yeah, I'm going to be excited for it, even though we haven't seen anything about it. So that's why I'm pumped to see more about this game. But I'm more than happy to wait until this game is fully finished and polished and everything. If that means waiting until late 2022, so be it. To me, it isn't a big deal. I just really thought that it looked like it was going to be ready to go based off of how long it was in development, based off of some of the marketing things that we saw with the Xbox Series X. They were doing like a charity a couple of months ago where you could enter into this contest and you could win an Xbox Series X, I believe, and they were marketing it alongside Starfield. So I thought those were like kind of signs pointing to it being released this year, but we'll have to wait and see. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people talking about it on Twitter. Like Jason Schreier now is going off saying that it isn't going to be until late 2022. And then you have other people here, like this Luke Stevens guy, who people are saying that what he is saying that it is coming this year, he has no validity, so don't listen to him. You have Maddie, where's his tweet here? So Mr. Maddie Plays, who actually put out an apology tweet for some reason. I don't even know what he was saying previously about it for him to have to put out an apology tweet, but he did, and he says, did a bit of reflecting, and I feel an apology is owed on the Starfield front. I take my reporting seriously and beat the 2021 drum quite loud. Despite mentioning 2022 is always possible, I was still more loud on 2021. I'm sorry if you feel I misled you. And I mean, there's no really reason to apologize. Everyone's speculating about these things. Everyone's just talking about the rumors of when Starfield is going to be released. I honestly don't think any of these guys actually know. I think they're just kind of basing it off of the people that they know within the industry that are maybe giving hints. but I don't think anybody's actually giving these guys a definitive date as to when they think this game is going to come out. Or maybe they did, and then behind closed doors, they had to tell them that it was getting pushed back. I don't know. Who knows? But Starfield is going to come out when it's ready. And when it comes to Starfield, in terms of my like weekly videos, more likely than not, unless there's like some huge news drop that I can't ignore, I'm not going to speculate anymore about when Starfield is going to come out until we see it at E3, because we're going to see it at E3. Like, they're going to show Starfield at E3. That's something you probably can bet your money on, because if they don't, then there's a big issue with the game, and it's going to be delayed maybe another 2 years. So if they don't show it, there's something going on, but there's like a high chance they are going to show it. So I'm going to wait until they show it off at E3. And I think like that's the way most people should be going. Just, it comes out when it comes out, and that's it. And it's better to wait for a game that's polished, complete, not have game-breaking bugs, not like Fallout 76, than to get a game that is rushed out to meet some sort of timeline and then has to be updated for a large majority of the time. So I'm good with waiting, and we'll have to wait and see what they show off at E3. But that wasn't the only, you could say, like, controversial. I don't know if it was controversial, but like argumentative topic about specific games that were happening this week. The other one, which is a video I made on Friday, was about Biomutant. So Biomutant, as we know, is a game from THQ Nordic. It's being published by them, but it's developed by Experiment 101, which if you don't know, Experiment 101 is not a massive AAA developer. They are a team of 20 people who are making this game, and THQ Nordic confirmed that in their tweets. That's 20 people working on this game, and they showed off some more gameplay videos. They showed a PlayStation 5 video and an Xbox Series X video, and they have confirmed that the Xbox Series X version of this game is going to be running in native 4K at 60 frames per second, and the PlayStation 5 version is going to be running a native 1080p upscaled to 4K, and they're saying it is due to technical issues. Now, you can take that for what you will. I made a video talking about it, and basically I was in that video, the message I was trying to convey wasn't that the PlayStation 5 is this brutal console that you should feel like an idiot for purchasing, and it's just a bad console. It was that it's absolutely absurd to be getting upset at these developers who are working on these games, and the PlayStation 5, because of its technical issues, which we've seen not just from Biomutant, but from other games, especially backwards compatibility and cross-generational games, because the PlayStation 5 is holding back the ability to port these games, I guess, from PS4 or whatever they do over to the PS5, and you're getting mad at the developers for this. To me, that is absolutely absurd. The PlayStation 5 and Sony, they just completely drop the ball when it comes to backwards compatibility and cross-generation when you compare it to what Xbox is doing. And I think this happened because they were not expecting backwards compatibility and just kind of transferring over PlayStation 4 titles to the PS5 to be something that is as big as it is. I mean, when they first talked about the PlayStation 5, Jim Ryan came out and said that they believed in generations, and then he had to go back on that, and then randomly they announced that they were going to have backwards compatibility to the PlayStation 4, and then they put out a big list. Whereas with the Xbox Series X and S, Xbox was very transparent from the beginning that backwards compatibility, cross-generation, smart delivery, those things were all stuff that were baked into the console that they were focusing on. So when these new consoles dropped, you would be able to play your catalog of Xbox games across all generations. That was something that we knew they were focusing on, and we were questioning whether PlayStation was focusing on this for a very long time before they announced it and before they went back on the generations thing. So that's the problem here. It isn't the developers. I know people want to blame the developers for this as much as they want, but the problem, I mean, I'm saying this strongly because I strongly believe it. I could be wrong. I mean, this is just my opinion, but the problem is that the PlayStation 5 has technical issues, like they're saying, that makes it much harder to get these cross-generational games and these backwards compatible games to run and take full advantage of the PS5 hardware. That's honestly what I think it is. So getting mad at the developers because the console you purchase has deficiencies is absurd. And I made that video talking about it. Maybe that was my main point. I think I conveyed it decently well. Reading through some of the comments, it seems like for some people I didn't, but obviously I do realize a lot of people just read the title, look at the thumbnail, don't watch the video, and then write a comment with their opinion and comment on the video, but they don't actually listen to what I say. So I can see that happening too. But at the end of the day, I also said in that video that like 1080p upscale to 4K, it's still going to look good. Like, I know some people think it's going to look terrible. I don't think so. I mean, it's not going to look as good as native 4K. It will depend also on like the size of the screen you're playing on. All that kind of stuff will have bearing on how Biomutant on the PS5 is going to look. But it's still going to look fine. It's still going to run fine. And if you're somebody who just owns a PlayStation 5 and you are excited about Biomutant, but you're thinking about not getting it because of this, because of all the stupid fake outrage out there on social media, and you're not going to pick it up because of that, I just think it's stupid. I mean, that's the way it is, but it's your money, so you do whatever you want. But on top of that, this Biomutant game is a game that I've had on my radar for a decent amount of time. And when they first showed it off like a long time ago, I thought it looked interesting, and then it just kind of went silent. And then more gameplay videos have been coming out over the last couple of weeks, and the more I see about this game, I honestly think this game could be a under the radar like game of the year style of game, open world RPG. I mean, I know that's a big jump to make for somebody who hasn't played 1 second of the game, but from what I'm seeing, it looks like it's going to be, at least for me, a game of the year style of game, my type of game, open world action RPG with tons of weapons you can get. You can upgrade your weapons, you can craft, and fast paced. Like, it looks like my perfect style of game. So I am, to say the least, very excited for Biomutant. And if I had a PS5 and only a PS5, I would 100% pick this game up on the PS5, even though it is native 1080p upscale to 4K. I would not be getting upset at the developers and stuff, because people have been just going crazy on this, and it's just so stupid. I mean, a lot of people are going to miss out on playing a great game because of just like the most absurd reasons, because of the 1080p thing. Yeah, I know we're in 2021. I know 1080p is kind of like a word you don't want to, or a number you don't want to throw out there anymore. We're in the era of 4K gaming. But hey, at the end of the day, it's not the developers at fault, in my opinion here. It is the deficiencies of the PlayStation 5 that is at fault when it comes to Biomutant. And I kind of want to expand a little bit more on like some stuff in, I think it was my last week's podcast. I was talking about how like my PlayStation 5 is collecting dust, because to me, for the PS5, there is nothing to play on it. And I stand by that for me personally, because I use my PlayStation 5 to solely play exclusive content. And to me, there hasn't been anything that has, up until, I guess, Returnal, which I didn't pick up because I'm not that interested in it, but Ratchet and Clank is something I'm interested in. Up until Ratchet and Clank, there's been a huge gap of games to play on my PS5, so I just haven't touched it. But of course, when you look at the game releases this month, from April to now, it doesn't matter what platform you're on. There's tons of games to play. I mean, we've got Outriders, we got Resident Evil 8, we got Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and now we're getting this Biomutant game here. So that's 4, I would say, relatively big games that are all, I mean, Mass Effect Legendary Edition is amazing. Resident Evil 8 is amazing. Outriders is a ton of fun. And I'm sure Biomutant is going to be a ton of fun too. So that's 4 huge games. So there's stuff to play on every console, but it all depends on what you like use your consoles for. For me, all my multi-plat games are on Xbox, and I'm plus playing all of the first-party Xbox games. So it's a console that I'm consistently using. But with the PlayStation 5, I literally only use it for their first-party titles. So I may play like, I don't know, 10 games on that console throughout. I don't know how many first party games they're going to release in an entire generation. Maybe like 10 to 15, something like that. I don't know. But I may use that console literally for like 10 to 15 games, and that's it. So it's hard to justify the purchase, to be completely honest. And in reality, I kind of want to sell my PS5, get rid of it, and wait for a slimmer version. I actually may do that. I've been thinking about that a lot, and I'm thinking these consoles are so hard to get. no reason for me to have it, to be collecting dust, when there's somebody out there who wants a PS5 so badly and is going to play every single multi-platform game, play all the free-to-play games, and play all the first-party PlayStation exclusives, who could have it. So I may sell it. I may honestly sell it. But yeah, it's been, I don't know. This has been what's been taking up the airwaves. And maybe it is because there isn't like that much news, big hitting news right now within the gaming industry. So you got things like this that people are just really focusing on. And what are we? When this podcast is out, it's going to be May 23rd. So we're 2 weeks, I believe, away from E3. 2 weeks or 3 weeks away from E3. So we're going to be 3 weeks away from E3. And do I know how to count? Maybe am I miscounting here? 1. Then we got 2, 3. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we're 3 weeks away from E3. And it's going to be dry up for these next 3 weeks. There's not going to be very much big news. So what I talk about on the podcast this week is going to be a lot of little things like that, which I still find very interesting, which is why I know a lot of people say there's not that much news, and I agree. But for me, I find those little things interesting, so I enjoy talking about it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about all this stuff. Let me know if you're disappointed that Starfield seemingly is not coming out until 2022, even maybe 2023, people are hinting, who knows. And let me know what you think about this Biomutant thing. If you haven't seen my video talking about it, the one I put out on Friday, go watch it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I conveyed my message properly in that video, because it was so absurd to me. And it was frustrating to see this developer of 20 people who look like they're making a really good game. We'll have to wait to see the reviews, but from what people are hinting at before the embargo, it looks like it's going to be a really good game. It's frustrating to see that their success and their sales may suffer because of, like, I guess I want to say stupid fanboys. I guess that's the best way to put it, who are angry about just ridiculous things. Anyways, let me know what you think about all that stuff. So this next one is actually really interesting, and it has to do with potentially some more competition to Xbox Game Pass, as Netflix is reportedly looking into expanding into video games. Now, this is a news report that comes from The Information, and it cites that sources who are familiar with the situation over the past few weeks, Netflix has been looking to fill a video game executive role and has reached out to numerous people within the industry. The games Netflix produces are set to be ad-free and will operate similarly to Apple's online subscription offering, Apple Arcade. So it looks like they are looking to get into the video game subscription world. And I think many companies are now thinking about getting into the video game subscription world, as we saw Amazon trying to jump in. We've seen Google try to jump in, not to very much success, I would say. But I think because of how big the video game industry is, how fast it is growing, how Xbox Game Pass has shown the success of a good video game subscription service and what it can do, which, I mean, they're almost reaching like 30 million subscribers now, and it continues to grow and it will continue to grow. I think a lot of these bigger companies like Netflix and other companies out there are going to want to get a piece of that video game pie. Now, will this be a direct competitor to Xbox Game Pass? I don't think so in any way, because they're saying it's going to operate similarly to Apple's online subscription offering. And if we look at Apple Arcade is like a $5.99 a month. That's Canadian, so like $3 or $4.99 a month in the United States. And it gives you access to, they say, 180 plus games, and they are the best collection of mobile games, arcade originals, timeless classics, and App Store grades. So mobile games, we all know what that is. I'm not sure what arcade originals are, and then the rest, I don't know. I've never used Apple Arcade. I have absolutely zero interest in Apple Arcade. I have zero interest in mobile games in general. That's not saying that I don't ever play any mobile games. Like, I've played a few, but I don't put very much time into them. And it's not, I would say, a direct competitor at all, in the sense that Xbox Game Pass focuses on games that need to be played on a console or on a PC, or if you're going to play them on a mobile device, they have to be played through streaming. You cannot like play those natively on your mobile device. So Direct competitor, no, but definitely interesting as to seeing a company like Netflix, where Game Pass has been coined the Netflix of gaming, and now Netflix is trying to become the Netflix of gaming, trying to get into this streaming service. And it'll be very interesting to see how they're going to go about doing this. Are they going to release a separate Netflix gaming service where you pay $5.99 like you do with Apple Arcade to get access to it? Or, which I would think would be the smarter way to do it, would be to just add it in to Netflix in general, because Netflix already has so many subscribers. They're already huge. You add in a gaming service that will give you 100 a game or something. I don't know how many they're going to put out initially, but whatever they're working on. And even if they're mobile games, you just add that in. You give that value to the customer. You say, hey, we're in gaming now. You sign up to Netflix. You get access not only to the movies and TV shows, you're going to get access to games that you can play on the go anytime that you want when you're not watching movies and TV shows. I think that would be a brilliant move by Netflix, because for a lot of people who watch a ton of Netflix, now I'll be honest, I do not watch very much Netflix. I have Netflix and I think about canceling it all the time because I do not have time to sit down and watch TV shows or movies very much. I'll be just completely honest. I do like watch all the big stuff that everyone talks about. I find time to do it, but I do not have very much time very often to dive into too many TV shows or movies, because when I do have free time, I spend it playing video games. Like, it's my number one medium of entertainment of any form, more than watching sports, more than movies, more than TV shows, anything. It's playing video games. So that's what I do with my free time. And I don't really watch Netflix, but I pay monthly for it. Like an idiot, I pay monthly for it still. I should probably cancel it, but that's all beside the point. If you're somebody who sits down and watches tons of Netflix all the time, there's a likelihood that you would be interested in taking Netflix, the subscription service, with you on the go when you have 10 minutes and you don't want to sit down and watch a movie. You want to maybe play a mobile game. You're going to have people logging in to your service for when they have time to sit down for long periods of time, and then when they have 10 minutes when they're on the bus or something and they want to play a game. So you're just going to have people continuously coming back to the Netflix service if they were to just add it in as an additional feature to their current subscription. I think that would be a smart way to go about it, but I mean, I could be wrong. They may want to just test the waters first and see if even anybody is interested in mobile gaming at all who's already subscribe to Netflix and put it out as a separate thing. We will have to wait and see, but people are thinking like, hey, this could be some sort of, competition to Xbox Game Pass. I just don't see it, because is Apple Arcade a competition to Xbox Game Pass? I don't think so. I think they target completely different user bases. Like somebody who's into only mobile games and those those bubble popping games where you match colors and that kind of stuff isn't interested in Halo. It's like, I don't see those two things lining up. I mean, the video game industry is so big now. Being a gamer is such a broad term because it covers so many different types of genres, so many different types of people in the games that they play, that you can't really directly compare these types of services together. You can't even really directly compare something like, I don't know, like Google Stadia and Xbox Game Pass, just because Google Stadia is something that you don't even need to even think about having any sort of hardware to play. And with Xbox Game Pass, it's more people that have been playing games for a very long time who have interest in big AAA games and IPs, and don't want to be limited to just streaming for the majority of people. Now, I'm sure there's some people who have Xbox Game Pass who just want to stream the games, so that is different. But I think the majority of people with Xbox Game Pass have a decent piece of hardware to be able to download and play these games, whether that is the Xbox itself or it's on PC. But I mean, this sphere of the video game industry is continuously changing. Like, it's something that's continuously changing. We're definitely moving away from the days that PlayStation seems to still be stuck in, which is locking people into your console, selling first party games as the marketing tool, and then that's it. That's how you make all your money. We're definitely starting to move over to the subscription service as the main way to play video games. and Xbox was the first one in that was successful. I mean, PS Now was before Game Pass, but Game Pass by far was the first successful one out there in the console slash PC market. So we'll have to see if there are any competitors that are going to be able to rival Game Pass anytime soon. I don't see it happening. I think Game Pass has really set them up as like in a strategic way as the leader, and will continue to be the leader for a very long time when it comes to this, but we'll have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think about this, about the Netflix getting into gaming, although it's going to be like Apple Arcade. Is this something you would be interested in? Do you watch a lot of Netflix movies and TV shows, and would you be interested in them just adding this on if they did, and maybe jumping into some mobile games when you're not watching movies or TV shows? All right, so this next topic is one that I just kind of wanted to provide the information about, because it's kind of one of those things where it's like a train that just continues to pick up steam and it isn't stopping. And this has to do with the Embracer Group. So the Embracer Group is an interesting kind of development here. It was formerly THQ Nordic, and then they became the Embracer Group in September of 2019. And then in 2020, I believe they purchased a bunch of studios and created these operative groups, which includes now like 240 IPs, 68 development studios, 7,000 plus people working there, and they're in 40 plus countries. And these operative groups have some pretty big name games and a lot of games that aren't like game of the year contenders, but just like decent games. So they have like THQ Nordic, who I just finished playing. What's it called? I just drew a blank. What's it called? Destroy All Humans. Destroy All Humans, the remake of it from Game Pass, which was a lot of fun. That's a THQ Nordic game, and they have like Darksiders and Kingdoms of Amalur, and there's just a bunch of other games under THQ Nordic. Then you got Koch Media and Deep Silver, which have games like, I believe Metro is a part of them, and there's some other stuff I'm not 100% sure. But then there's Coffee Stain. I don't know anything from there. I mean, I probably played a game from Coffee Stain. I think like Goat Simulator is a part of Coffee Stain. Not 100% sure. Then you have Amplifier. Not sure what they published. Saber Interactive. I've played some Saber Interactive games. I've seen that publishing logo come up before. So they do a bunch of stuff. Deca. No idea what they do. Gearbox Entertainment. So games like Borderlands, and then Easy Brain, which looks like probably mobile and puzzle style of games. But just in their little about section, they actually list off some of the games, some that I've mentioned, but some that I haven't, like Saints Row, Ghost Simulator, Dead Island, Darksiders, Metro, MX vs. ATV, Kingdoms of Amalur, Time Splitters, Satisfactory, Wreckfest, Insurgency, World War Z, and Borderlands, amongst many others. Now, just reading through that list is actually crazy to think about, because there's a lot of, like, I recognize every single game on that list, but I would have absolutely no idea that they were all part of the Embracer Group. And still, I started looking at this information and the studios that they own and seeing the games that they put out there. I didn't know, because there's so many under the Embracer Group. It's kind of hard to keep track of them all. One of the interesting things in this game list here is Time Splitters. And this week, Time Splitters, which was like a beloved first-person shooter franchise back on like the PS2 and the GameCube and the Xbox. And it's a game that a lot of people have wanted back for so long, and there's been nonstop rumors that it was coming back, and it looks like it officially is. So Time Splitters is going to return now under Reborn, a Reborn Free Radical studio, and it's going to be published by Deep Silver. And that's just awesome news to see. So we'll have to see how this game turns out, what they do with it, what it's going to look like on the next gen consoles. I'm sure it will look great, but that's just like another big name franchise that is coming back, and it's going to be under the Embracer Group. But with all of that being said, if you sat back and thought, okay, they have so many studios, so many IPs, they're done. Like, they have more IPs and studios that'll last them a lifetime. They don't need to go out and purchase anymore. That does not seem to be the case. So they had, during a call, I think it was their investors call, the CEO of the Embracer Group, Lars Wingefors, came out and said that during the quarter ending March, we have engaged with more than 150 companies about joining the group, including larger companies that could form additional operating groups and have a significant impact on the group as a whole. Across the group, we are in more than 20 late stage talks. So they aren't done. looks like they're going to be trying to get like 20 plus more studios into the Embracer Group and just create this conglomerate that has so many studios publishing and developing games nonstop across PC, across console, and across mobile, that you're always going to have some sort of Embracer Group game in front of you to play at all times, new and remasters and remakes and bringing back old franchises and old IPs coming up from the dead like they're doing with Time Splitter. So it's crazy. The thing is, they have so many. They must have some sort of end goal with all of this, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if anybody knows what it is, but whatever they're doing, it seems to be working, because this tweet has also come out that the Embracer Group has now overtaken Ubisoft as Europe's most valuable game company, which to me is crazy to think about, because I thought Ubisoft was so much bigger than any other company in Europe, but obviously not anymore, as these investments and these purchases of the Embracer Group is clearly paying off, and who knows why they're doing it. But in my opinion, it's because there's so much money floating around and everyone's trying to struggle for that dominant position in the video game industry, as I believe it is the fastest growing entertainment medium right now and the biggest, surpassing like movies and all that kind of stuff. So people are jostling for position, and it's not going to stop. And the more studios and the more IPs and the more stuff that you own, the more control you have on the amount of money you're going to be able to make going forward. So that's probably why they're doing it. We'll have to wait and see what studios he's mentioning in here with the 20 plus that they're in late stages talk. They could be just very small studios, right? They may not be anything big. They could be small, like mobile studios and stuff like that. But it is interesting to see that they're continuing to expand. And hey, this, even after they get these 20 plus, it may not be the end of it. But let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you think about the Embracer Group and the games that they create and they have under them, and what do you think about their games overall. Now, jumping over here to some PlayStation 5 news, it looks like PlayStation is continuing to milk their golden child, which is Final Fantasy. And I say that because it seems like that third-party exclusivity between new Final Fantasy games and PlayStation it just keeps growing. I mean, we saw last year with Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and then Integrate, which is like the additions to Final Fantasy VII Remake, is going to be a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation console 6-month exclusive, and Final Fantasy VII Remake was probably one of the most anticipated games last year. And now we're seeing that Final Fantasy 16 is going to be a PlayStation console exclusive. It looks like that may not be the last Final Fantasy game that is going to be exclusive to PlayStation, as there's a rumor floating around here that another major PS5 exclusive Final Fantasy game will be announced at E3. Now, this rumor stems from Navtra at Reset Era, who is, I guess, potentially an insider. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know who any of these people are, but they seemingly have an accurate track record, the article says. So Navtra previously predicted most of the main reveals for Sony's first PS5 showcase, including the fact that Final Fantasy 16 would be announced as an exclusive. And now this person believes that you can expect at least one more major Final Fantasy announcement in addition to updates on the currently announced stuff. This post goes on to say that it will be a good E3 season for Square Enix overall. Now, who knows what that means, right? Could it be in addition to, I don't know, exclusive stuff for Final Fantasy 14? Could it be just another spin-off of a Final Fantasy game? Maybe some more announcement for Final Fantasy 16. Nobody actually knows what that means, but in general, it makes sense based on what happened with Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which I don't think we're going to see on an Xbox console until 2022, if we even do. Who knows? But and then we got Final Fantasy 16 coming over console exclusively to PlayStation 5. And it seems like when it comes to new Square Enix games, new Square Enix Final Fantasy games specifically, it is PlayStation's golden goose as third-party stuff. And it makes sense because Final Fantasy is such a large franchise. in Asia, in North America. I'd say like Final Fantasy in terms of a JRPG is probably the most mainstream JRPG in North America. I could be wrong on that, but it just seems that way. I enjoy the Final Fantasy games. Like I played 7 Remake. I thought it was great. I played Final Fantasy 14, the MMO. I grinded from level 1 to 80, had a great time with it. I played Final Fantasy 15. I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoy the Final Fantasy games. I can't lie. So seeing them be locked to console exclusivity to PlayStation, for me, as it being a third-party game, is disappointing because I'd rather play it on my Xbox and get some achievements for it. But it is what it is. I'm still going to play Final Fantasy 16, whether that's on PC or PS5. I'm still going to pick it up and play it. Don't get me wrong, but it just seems like it's what Sony's golden goose is. And if they announce some like crazy new Final Fantasy thing that is going to be exclusively released for the PS5 that isn't Final Fantasy 16 at this upcoming E3, you best believe like people are going to be excited for that, and for good reason. And we'll have to wait and see. I know a lot of people are burned out by Final Fantasy. They don't like it, but at the end of the day, it's still an incredibly selling franchise, incredibly popular franchise. So anytime you can get some sort of exclusivity with Final Fantasy, just the name itself, the notoriety and the marketing behind that is huge. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below, about this rumor about another Final Fantasy PlayStation 5 exclusive that is going to be announced at E3. And let me know if you like Final Fantasy. Do you even care? And if this is something you would go and pick up a PS5 for. And then finally, to end things off, I just wanted to talk a bit more about some console sales stuff. I know it's everybody's favorite topic. I mean, I'm being facetious there, but I know that, in my opinion, and I've said this previously, that console sales in this generation is not that important for Xbox specifically, but it's still interesting to look at and still interesting to talk about, especially with the time that we're in with COVID, with chip shortages, and just how hard it is to get these consoles. I always like looking at what some of these analysts are saying. But basically, this comes from the analytics firm Ampere Analysis, and they have estimated that the PlayStation 5 has outsold the Xbox Series XS 2-1 in the first quarter of 2021. It says here, both Sony and Microsoft's new consoles are suffering from supply constraints and unpredicted availability. These conditions are expected to continue for the rest of 2021 as competition for components remains high, making it challenging for many CE companies to increase production. Under these conditions, both versions of the PlayStation 5 combined outsold both versions of the Xbox Series consoles by more than 2-1. Now, I'm not surprised by that in any way. The PlayStation 5 broke PlayStation 4 records for the same time frame with consoles sold. They're at 7.8 million compared to the 7.6 million from the PS4 in the same time frame. And in general, the Xbox has a lot of bouncing back to do, I guess you could say, when it comes to consumer trust and buy-in and all that kind of stuff, based off of the Xbox One. But they've done a great job. Like they've done a great job, and they're doing a great job, and I think they're continuing to do a great job. So when it comes to console sales, the PlayStation is going to continuously outsell Xbox throughout this entire generation. It's not going to change. I don't think one time throughout this generation we're going to see the headline that the Xbox Series X has outsold in total the PS5. I just don't see it happening for a couple of reasons. One, console sales just don't matter at Xbox as much. Like they just don't. Like that's just the fact of it. They really don't. With their business strategy, they just want you in their ecosystem no matter where you play, mobile, PC, Xbox. They don't care. They just want you in that ecosystem. With that being said, they're not going to just like forget about consoles. I mean, consoles, I've said this many times, is one of the biggest gateways into that ecosystem. So it would be absolutely absurd and stupid of them to cut them off and stop caring about consoles. I think we're going to see an Xbox console for obviously this generation, and then next generation, maybe even a generation after that. I would not be surprised if Xbox consoles, as long as there are still consoles being made in the market, are going to continue. It just would make absolutely no sense to cut it off. And then you think about the value of an Xbox console as a consumer. Like, I'm picking up an Xbox over building a PC any day of the week. from what we're getting from both the S and the X. But PlayStation has that marketing notoriety. It's a more popular brand across the world. It's going to sell extremely fast. They're scalpers. People are buying them up like crazy. So you got to keep that into account as well. And as we go through, that really is not going to change. What is interesting, however, is we are starting to see a minor shift in Xbox in these different markets, or foreign markets, I guess, for me would be like in India and in Asia and all that kind of stuff. I think we're going to start to see an uptick in the Xbox Series S being sold more. Now, this isn't the first time I've talked about the Xbox Series S doing well in India, and I've had people in my comments chime in who are from India who talk about the Xbox Series S, and I always like to see those perspectives from other people from around the world. It's always like very interesting to see how they look at things compared to how I look at things being here in Canada. But the Xbox Series S was the best-selling console in April 2021. So there are many reasons why the Series S was the best-selling console in India in April. And yes, I know what you're all thinking. One of the reasons is because it was more routinely available, especially over the PlayStation 5, as it actually even says here that the Xbox Series S was more available with frequent restocks. But there are other reasons and stuff that I've talked about in previous videos, and I find these reasons fascinating, and it shows the Series S and the Xbox strategy, especially when it comes to Game Pass. So the article says, we weren't expecting customers to choose the Series S over the PS4 when both are in stock. A lot of them are just doing it for Xbox Game Pass. In fact, the number one request is to help them set up Game Pass for GTA 5. Then they go on to say here that pricing is also a factor, with the difference being just 5,000 rupees between the two, with more seem to be opting for the Series S. The Xbox Series S in India is priced at 34,990 rupees, while the PS4 is priced at 29,990 rupees. But I don't know what 5,000 rupees is in Canadian dollars or American dollars, like what that difference actually is between the two. It seems like a lot in rupees, but I don't know what that would translate to. But in general, obviously, you're going into a store, you want what's available, and a lot of people are going to, in these countries, maybe look for what platform supports the games they want to play, like PS4 supports GTA 5, right? And then which console is the cheapest. But with that being said, someone's going in looking at a Series S and they're looking at a PS4, and even though the Series S costs more, they are picking that up over the PlayStation 4 and probably at times over the PlayStation 5 because of Xbox Game Pass and the games that are available on that service. And I find that fascinating because in a lot of these countries, they aren't playing all of the first party exclusive games. They're playing a select few amount of games like GTA 5 and FIFA. And both those games are available on Xbox Game Pass. One of the things that once it's marketed out there, I think will be a huge hit. Like if you're in India and you see that an Xbox Series S, a brand new next generation console, is available and you can pay a small amount per month to get access to all of the games that you want to play, plus a ton more that you're going to be able to discover, I think it's going to be a very hot selling console. And it makes a lot of sense in these markets where they're still going into stores looking for PlayStation 4s. The Xbox Series S is going to be able to easily compete, and it will be even more insightful to see how well it sells when the PS5 is readily available. I think it's still going to sell great. I think you walk into a store, you see the price of the PS5, you see the Series S, and you're like, well, I just want to play a GTA 5. Why the heck in the world would I pay full price for a Series X or a PlayStation 5 when I can just pick up the Xbox Series S, get Game Pass, get access to the game for a small monthly fee plus a bunch more, and save a bunch of money on the console? But hey, that's what I think. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think that the Series S is going to continue to sell well in markets like India? And overall, do you even think console sales matter? I don't think they matter, but let me know what you guys think in general when it comes to the Xbox versus the PlayStation 5 console sales. But that's it for me for this week's episode of the Plumecast, episode number 8. Thank you guys all again for stopping by and listening, especially if you're a long-time listener. You've been listening to every episode. I really do appreciate it. I definitely see all the comments out there from people who are listening on a weekly basis, and it means a lot to me. And also, if you've been watching my uploads throughout the week, really appreciate that. And Hey, I mean, my channel is growing, and I owe it all to you guys just for watching and sharing around and stuff. So let's keep it growing. Let's grow this community. Let's have great conversations about what is going on, because it is a lot of fun. And I'm gonna have a giveaway at 5K subscribers, so definitely stay tuned for that. I think it's a giveaway that people will be interested in. I think it's something that people will want to try to get. So keep your eyes open for that. I'm going to have to set it up in a way that it's done fairly, and I want to set it up in a way that it rewards people for who have been interacting on the channel for a long period of time. So it's not just somebody who comes in who's never watched the video, subscribes, and then luckily win, right? Because like that's I don't know, I don't find that fair, but I'm gonna have to set it up. It's gonna take a lot of work, so stay tuned for that. But again, thank you guys for watching. And yeah, I'll catch you throughout the week in my videos, and I will catch you next week on the Plumecast.